when we talked about growth, in my point of view, it was very kind of one dimensional. It was, we need more loans, we need more deposits, we need more non-interest income. It was these big, high level types of growth strategies, but there was such a missed opportunity on really talking about the details of the strategy, the who are we really trying to serve? What I've really seen that's exciting over the last, 5 to 7 years is marketing's role has absolutely evolved in the banks and credit unions because I think executives are really understanding the power of data.
Growth in financial services isn't just about pulling the obvious levers anymore. Today, we're talking with Jody Guetter, the new CMO of technology provider Nymbus. Jody shares how community banks and credit unions can move their growth strategies beyond just we need more loans and deposits to creating meaningful and defensible growth engines. Drawing from her experience both as a practitioner and service provider, Jody shares how institutions are using data and vertical strategies to serve targeted markets more effectively. This is a great conversation about transforming marketing from traditional brand building into being a strategic driver of growth. Jody, thanks for being with us today.
My absolute pleasure, Rich. I always appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with like-minded folks like yourself.
So, you understanding you have a new role, a new position in what you're doing at Nymbus, but I think probably a good place to start is a little bit about your background, particularly the rather industry focus you've had, and start there, and then we can kind of get into the lessons learned and how that's impacting your current role.
Yeah, happy to. I definitely like to talk about my career journey because it isn't necessarily super conventional for folks that are in financial services. I always say you either kind of fell into financial services or you were born into it, particularly community banking. But aging myself, but my career started about 20 years ago. Always been in marketing, strategy, data focused functions, but grew up in Australia, started my career in Australia, primarily working in the retail sector. So really focused in on high end luxury, apparel and cosmetic kind of brands there. So a lot of my early career was very much focused on kind of buying and planning, doing a lot of kind of research, emerging markets when brick and mortar was still a very big thing, identifying new emerging markets to, open stores in, but very data strategy, focused always. My career kind of morphed and I immigrated to the States, still working in that sector, working with brands like Chanel, YSL, very prestige brands in the United States. And then um, as the world and the stars would have it, I would land my first community banking job as a marketing executive for a privately owned community bank in Minnesota. So that was really, that's about 12, 13 years ago. And I may give or take there a little bit. But I was really fortunate to work for a community bank that was really diverse in their segments that they were serving, both geographically and from a business line perspective. So that really gave me an immense amount of opportunity to learn big parts of the business, but certainly also how do you market to multiple audiences through, different messaging channels, product strategies, and so that was a really incredible time. And I was there at the community bank for about 7 years. Went to a CMO role in software, and then have spent the last 3 to 4 years here at Nymbus as their head of labs, as their EVP of Nymbus Labs, and now more recently as their chief marketing officer. So really have quite an expansive career in both industries, but also kind of the depth and breadth within the functions of marketing, product technology, and innovation fields as well.
So, one thing I'd be interested for your perspective on is growth is always an agenda, particularly for marketers and people that are on the kind of
Right.
the innovation side, and particularly on the digital side that is, you know, post Great Recession, that's been an even bigger focus, and like trying to navigate it in Dodd-Frank, and the myriad of complexities of how that job has changed in the past decade and a half. You what have you seen as the what's normal, what's not normal, what are the unique approaches? What have you seen that's kind of worked both in your experience as a
Mhm.
practitioner, and then also spending several years now as essentially as a service provider between
Right.
technology and services?
Yeah, and I think that's the hard question, that there is not one path to growth that is the only avenue, right? That you can't just replicate what the bank or credit union is doing next to you and thinking that it can work for your, FI. And that's why the work that we're doing is, definitely hard work. Um, One of the things I've really observed over my career, and particularly when I entered into the industry, the conversations that I was having with bank executives around the boardroom, when we talked about growth, in my point of view, it was very kind of one dimensional. It was, we need more loans, we need more deposits, we need more non interest income. It was these big high level types of growth strategies, but there was such a missed opportunity on really talking about the details of the strategy. The Who are we really trying to serve? What problems are we really trying to overcome? And the kind of mindset that I was seeing was there was just these levers that needed to be pulled at times that maintained a balance sheet in a healthy way. It mitigated risk, it kept a healthy balance sheet, and there was good margin there. And they're all very important things. But I think what was really missing from a lot of the strategies, or neglected aspects of the strategies, were really about what are the specific things we need to do to solve a specific market problem. And what I've really seen that's exciting over the last, 5 to 7 years is marketing's role has absolutely evolved in the banks and credit unions, because I think executives are really understanding the power of data, the power of our world becoming more and more digital, which is allowing us to better understand the people that we're serving, better understand how to reach them in a more efficient, personalized, humane way. And that role of marketing was like light bulbs went off to where, okay, who knows the audience better than anyone? It's not just the lender or the business development officer. It's these folks that have detailed data, transactional, customer, demographic data that starts to be really driving, business decisions. And so I think banks and credit unions that I've seen have really exponential growth are the folks that really decided we need to slow down a little bit so we can speed up. And by better understanding the people that they're actually trying to serve, and the problems that they're trying to solve there. Um, I'm also seeing CEOs, um, they're historically been the visionaries, and they will always continue to be visionaries, but caring a lot more about quality over quantity, really talking a lot more about execution and delivery. Again, with this understanding that we have an opportunity to execute with more precision now because we have data, we can make more informed decisions. And so I'm seeing a lot more curiosity come out of the conversations between CEOs and executives and CMOs around growth. And that curiosity, I think, is really allowing bank and credit unions to do new things in new ways that is really maximizing their growth potential.
So a lot of times executives and leaders will in all good faith say, yes, yes, we are data
Mm.
driven. But digging underneath the covers, the substance underneath there sometimes is lacking, or at least there's a wide variability in how that actually shows up from an execution standpoint. what have you seen as, either the markers that they're there and they've done it, or that they're serious about this commitment and it really is leading to a change in what they're doing?
Yeah, you're spot on. There's no shortage of data, right? So I think that that's kind of the first thing, right? I remember one of the first times I had a conversation with a CEO around data. I was literally asked, "Do we have that?" And yes, the answer is yes. But you're spot on, Rich. It's about what insight do I need to garner from that data, and what are those insights going to tell me about how to inform my business strategy, my growth strategy, et cetera? So it is absolutely putting more emphasis on the outcomes of the data from an insights perspective, but really also understanding what data is important to me from even like a performance management perspective, as well, because we could get so bombarded by the amount of data. And you've heard it 1,000 times that analysis paralysis as well, to where you just end up doing nothing, right? So I think a couple of things that I'm seeing, um, a lot more organizations are absolutely investing in their tech environment and their ecosystem infrastructure, whatever you want to kind of call it, to make sure that the multiple systems that you have beyond the core. And I think that that's really important too. It's not just a core system that we're operating. It's not a general ledger anymore. It's so much more than that. You've got all of these ancillary systems, your online banking, your online account opening, your mobile apps, your decision engines, your predictive analytics. You've got your third parties integrations. And so the organizations that are really putting kind of their money where their mouth is when it really comes to data are really looking at their tech stack as a banking platform that needs to be fully integrated and connected to be able to really consume all of the different data points first and foremost, and then investing in MarTech or data warehouses or data streaming and APIs to then be able to go, okay, now I can actually do something with this data in a meaningful way, to where it's consumable or it's visualized or the data objects are being delivered in a way that a data scientist or even a CMO can come in and with their business intelligence team and actually do something, interpret, analyze, garner the insights to make decisions. So I think there's a mindset shift, looking at your core as more than a GL, really investing in understanding the importance of integration and connecting all of those data points, and then also investing in things like reporting engines, BI tools, data streaming. And then there's the people aspect, right? Who are the people and the talents? And this is where, again, that shift within the marketing, there's more emphasis on, marketing, even like member experience officers. You see sometimes that um, data function will sit under there too, because banks and credit unions are realizing more and more that we need to connect that data with the people that can, create new experiences and optimize experiences for their members and customers.
So what have you seen as, I don't know, maybe like the first steps or the early wins, or that thing that, maybe an organization that aspires to be like this or thinks they're there but really wants to do better, that they can get past that inertia. They can get the ball rolling and begin to show the wins that maybe would bring along a reticence around investment, or a reticence around bringing in people with the skills that they need, for example. Like,
Yeah.
where's that, like, place to start that seems to make the most sense for, these
Yeah.
smaller organizations of this size?
Yeah, yeah, it's very easy, particularly, and I almost regrettably use the word like data scientist, right? Because that feels like very like aspirational, and I'm hiring someone, 6-figure salary that's, with a PhD coming from, Harvard or something like that. But without oversimplifying it too, Rich, I think the real starting point is your strategy. And again, a $100 million dollar credit union in Kentucky is going to have a very different strategy to a $10 billion community bank in Minneapolis, right? And so I always want to start and I always want to spend more time talking about your growth strategy. And even if it's aspirational, but starting with your growth strategy again, what more business do I want? What is the white space in the market? Where does the opportunity lie externally from a growth and acquisition perspective, or even within our existing kind of balance sheet and member base here? Because what will happen from that, spending more time on the strategy, then you can really start to get vision lock on how do we then get from point A from point B. Is it through enabling technology? Is it through hiring new talent? Is it adding on an API and having this data stream to be able to do the same thing? And I think what tends to happen when we spend more time on the strategy, it allows us then to move a lot faster because we have clarity on the decisions that need to be made. A great example is we're having a lot more conversations at Nymbus around verticalization strategy. And what I mean by that is really understanding, having more discussion, particularly with an emphasis on small business, of it's more than just saying serve small business. It's going, okay, what do I know about my small business member base or customer base today? Maybe I'm really highly concentrated in a particular industry vertical, but I've done some market research and there's actually a pretty significant TAM, total addressable market, in this part of the country that I'm adjacent to. Now I can start to create vertical strategies that are kind of going across to where I can really create new go to market strategies, new service delivery, new products that's very bespoke and meaningful for a particular audience. But it's really starting with a growth strategy. And then you're solutioning up with tech or products or process improvements, etc.
Now, a lot of times you'll get feedback around talking about this, particularly verticalization and trying to
Yeah.
do specialized focus around, hey, we're trying to grow here. And to say we should narrow our approach and go after effectively a smaller market seems counterintuitive. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
times you'll talk to community financial institutions that are saying, we're trying to expand our approach. You know, we're going into new geographies, or if we're a credit union, we're trying to expand our field of membership. We're trying to address a larger market. How does narrowing my focus and going after what appears to be a smaller market, how is that an advantage? And how does that even make sense from a growth standpoint?
Yeah, I think there's it's a great question. I think there's a couple ways to really look at it. I think kind of twofold. I think that the first is it's not necessarily looking at it like I'm narrowing my focus in a way I have less people to serve or acquire. And that's why I appreciate the verticalization strategy. It allows you to go narrow on a vertical, but the reality is we want you to serve multiple verticals, right? That actually open up your TAM, but do so in a way that is bespoke to that particular audience. So being able to go over and MSU, FCU, Michigan State University Federal Credit Union is an incredible example of this. And so is People's Bank is a client of ours as well, where they've identified, they're like, I serve this space, Michigan University students, Oakland University students, but it's a very limited view, right? It's a very limited TAM. People enter college, I serve them for 4 years, and then, they leave the college experience. But now we've created a vertical strategy to where we're now identified at a segment, high school graduates about to enter college and serving them colleges nationally. We're now serving them during their college experience. We're now serving them post college as well as alumni for at a national level. And now we're also understanding that a lot of these alumni are entrepreneurs and starting new businesses. And now we have a small business vertical as well. And so they really looked at it as a way to actually expand their field of membership in a way that was really bespoke to a particular vertical, but without narrowing, the overall focus, right? Without jeopardizing kind of the initial brand integrity there. Excuse me. So really looking at it as a way to actually expand your TAM and serviceable market. And then again, it gives you this opportunity too to think about how do you also diversify your balance sheet too, because I know that's a risk, particularly with SBP, a lot of that kind of surface from this. So it also becomes now these levers that you can pull at different times based on, economic conditions or market opportunities as well, where you can kind of lean in and lean out of these different verticals at different times, but really looking at it as a way to diversify the balance sheet too.
So your previous role at Nymbus was specifically running the labs
Right.
offering, the
Yeah.
labs experience, which seems like it was like very focused on this and helping customers do exactly this, like execute this exact. Tell us a little bit about what that experience is like
Yeah.
for one of your customers, what the kind of the business model is, how that works out.
Yeah, yeah, happy to. It's a very exciting part of our business, and again, I think another way that we're showing up to where we're really again starting with strategy versus kind of the technology or the product delivery as well. But essentially, Nimbus Labs is a strategy marketing research arm of Nimbus. So we have kind of breadth and depth of incredible talent, in the US and, other parts of the world as well. But we really start with our research team and market intelligence team. And so we do an incredible amount of market research to not just identify the TAM, right? Okay, there's enough people to serve where the economics make sense, etc. But what's really the serviceable, addressable market? Or who are the people that have a digital propensity for, online banking, mobile banking? What are their financial attitudes and behaviors? What are the things that are keeping them up at night that we actually need to create a solution for that's very meaningful for that particular a vertical or segment of the population? So we really start with a ton of research. We do a ton of pressure testing. And what I mean by that is, in-person interviews, focus groups, really kind of validating the thesis and the information that we're researching and gathering. And then once we have a thesis or a concept that we think, that there's some legs there, we also have a full brand strategy part of the team as well. So then we also got to take that data and insights, and then, what is the type of brand and positioning that will really resonate with that particular audience and be a compelling enough value proposition to where they would want to either switch banks or even add another digital bank to their, financial service mix. I think we all know that the amount of financial relationships we have now is the traditional, one and done PFI anymore. So then we build out the whole branding concept, value position, messaging. We have some incredible creative folks that do that. And then we also then have performance marketing, content marketing part of the team too. What we've learned is that brand, just as a brand, isn't going to get you the kind of growth that you're looking for, or just a well-researched thesis. Kind of the go-to-market strategy, the channel strategy that you've already kind of touched on, Rich. The content strategy. How do you engage, nurture? What is that funnel? Particularly with digital acquisition is really, really important. So we have a team of performance marketers, on the bench as well. And so most of our clients, there's kind of a few ways that folks can work with Nimbus Labs or have come to us in the past. There's folks again, like April Clovis, where she's like, I've got this vision, I've got a strategy, but I don't really know if there's, legs there. I need it to kind of be validated, right? And so some clients will come to us with like that kind of use case, and then they'll tap into Nimbus Labs and we'll kind of validate the thesis there, and then kind of bring it to market if that's the right path forward. um, Clients can build it with us. Locality is an incredible example as well, where we kind of built it from, the ground up as a de novo, built the brand and supported with their go-to-market strategy. Or we also have what we call kind of pre-built concepts where we've already kind of conceptualized, various different use cases, and it's essentially kind of like a bank in a box, if you will, too, where it's like you've got the research, the concept, already kind of proofed out. And if there's kind of, again, this vertical that you're like, hey, we really need to kind of tap into this vertical. We know that there's a market opportunity, or hey, we see this gap in our balance sheet. We're really wanting to try and find new revenue sources. This is where we could introduce different kind of concepts for that again can be purchased, or again can be kind of thought starters within the strategy.
So it sounds like while Nimbus is primarily known as a technology company, software heavy, that approach, that this way of engaging and working with customers is a lot more like an agency would look. Those type of services, that type of core work, that an awful lot of do it for me type approach versus, hey, we're just another layer in your tech stack. Is that a fair assessment of like the approach Labs has taken?
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of things to that, Reach. I think we absolutely like at the core, and excuse the play words, but at the core of who we are, we're a core company, we're a technology company. But we really believe that it's very hard to sell core, right, to begin with, and it's a very challenging thing for banks to want to kind of bite off, right? We understand it's such a huge part of the business, and so we've really tried to reframe the type of conversations that we have with bank leaders about it being a part of the strategy, and so we've really leaned into that strategy consulting type approach first, to allow for that, again, that kind of vision lock. And then, the technology becomes really, the enabler of that strategy. And so absolutely, we have a lot of conversations where we have kind of those light bulb moments with prospects or clients where it's like, oh, you're a strategy consulting firm. And then you've got kind of the tech stack that kind of brings that forward. And so we've absolutely lent into that as a point of differentiation. And then it's beyond just kind of that, initial like, okay, now I get the strategy. Now I'm going to partner with you, or, whoever, to do the thing. We've also really understood that, a lot of these strategies need to scale. The economies, of scale need to make sense. Speed to market is really important, right? I know we all talk about 3 to 5 year strategic plans and things like that at banks and credit unions, but the reality is that none of us are moving fast enough. And so the other part of our strategy is really through kind of managed services as well. And so particularly with our launch product, but we do for core as well. And our launch product is a lot of this verticalization strategy, sidecar concepts to grow. We have full compliance risk management fraud that supports these brands, customer experience with our call center, loan underwriting, like, all of the things too, right? Because one of the things that we want to really make sure that we can do is like address all of the, blockers up front to make deploying a strategy like this even easier for banks and credit unions as well.
So now that you're in this new role and the scope is obviously increased, what's your view of the market, particularly when it comes to this space that you play in, the size of the customer that you're going after, where the growth opportunities are? Like what is on your agenda, or what do you think are the most relevant trends that you're trying to address with everything that you do, from content to your go to market to your offerings to, everything that kind of goes in there and in between?
Yeah, yeah. I wish I had a crystal ball, certainly. And I think, particularly with all of the conversations around AI, but I'm not going to go down that path today. We'll save the AI in banking conversation for another day. But look, I think a couple of things. I think we know that M&A is going to ramp up for sure. In the coming year, we're already seeing a lot of momentum in that space. I think the branch network and going into new markets is going to continue to expand, although there's going to be consolidation. I see brick and mortar is still going to have a big part. I'm seeing a lot more of um, like LPOs and digitization of like activating bankers into new geographies as well. I actually had three different bank director conferences, CEO exchanges, the last kind of 6 to 8 weeks. And these are a lot of the trends and topics for growth that they're talking about. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to kind of educate the market on and create new thinking again is that these growth strategies don't just have to be like the one thing that takes you 2 to 3 years to execute, like, an M&A engagement, that there are multiple levels and multiple growth strategies to deploy. Again, some of that may be brick and mortar, M&A, LPOs, whatever it may be, but really leveraging this verticalization strategy in a way that gets you to those growth goals faster. Banks and credit unions are already doing it in a sense and have been doing it for a really long time, but they haven't necessarily looked at the technology to enable that in a different way, and particularly to open up field of membership or to go nationally, into new markets, etc. Digital marketing data is a massive part of the success of those strategies as well. So, from a trend perspective, I'm seeing more and more FIs either augment, their existing marketing team with, really specialized, agency folks, particularly performance marketers, and even CMOs now are really, moving away from, brand and corporate communications and really, coming in more into kind of data focused performance marketing functions as well, because that efficiency to acquire is becoming more and more important, right? I can't afford to pay $250, $300 CAC. I need to have that. And I need to be worried about my margins. So I need to be able to service them in a more efficient way. So wanting to be able to serve them through more digital channels too. So those are a couple of things very related to the world that I live in, but those are absolutely investments that are happening, trends that are happening, particularly within the marketing, function as well.
Jody, this has been very insightful and
Oh,
valuable,
oh,
and thank you very much for joining us and sharing. If people are more interested in Nimbus and the labs and you personally, where can they go to get more information?
yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate your kind words. It's always fun to talk about, bank marketing and growth and strategy. So a couple of things. Absolutely. I'm an open book and I love to have conversations, like this, candidly. So please, Jody Guetter, CFMP, on LinkedIn. So I would love to connect and continue the dialogue. Certainly IM me as well, or visit Nymbus.com, to snoop around and seek to understand a little bit more about the great work that we're doing. But please, I really welcome the invitation to continue the discussion on LinkedIn.
And we'll put links to that in the show notes.
Great.
Jody, thanks again for being with us today.
Of course, Rich. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.